Now, each year, almost 3,000 young people are killed or seriously injured on our roads.
Today marks the start of Road Safety Week, and there are now calls for a change in the law for young drivers, who account for a third of all deaths on British roads. Nick Dixon is in Blackpool and the scene of a recent road tragedy. Morning to you, Nick.
Good morning, Alan. Yes, dreadful accident occurred on this stretch of road in Blackpool in July last year. 19-year-old driver Naomi Jones was out in the car along this road with two friends, came around this corner, completely lost control of the vehicle and smashed into the tree here. You can see just at the base of the tree, the flowers are the only sign now of the tragedy that occurred that night. Naomi's best friend, her 17-year-old friend Alicia, was in the car. She suffered horrendous injuries and died in hospital 2 days later. Naomi herself was also injured, and just last week she was sentenced to 6 months in prison. A terrible tragedy, and sadly not uncommon up and down the country. Just take a look at these figures. Road crashes are the single biggest cause of accidental death for 15 to 24-year-olds. Last year, 2,776 deaths or serious injuries on the roads, and that's 7 families every day affected by tragedies involving their children. Back to you.
Thank you, Nick. We're joined now by Sophie Morgan and her mum, Carol. Sophie was involved in a car accident when she was just 18, which left her paralysed from the chest down. And it's good to see both of you. Thank you for coming in. How long had you passed your test before the accident?
I had my licence about 6 months, maybe a bit more.
Were you a good driver? Were you confident, do you think?
I think I was just a typical young driver. I mean, I'd passed first time. I'd done obviously quite well in my test, so I was confident, I was cocky, self-assured and very, very inexperienced, obviously. So I'm your typical example, really.
What actually happened?
I lost control. I was driving late at night with passengers and loud music, all of that sort of thing. Lost control of the car and flipped it into a field on the right-hand side of the road. So
it's what happens, isn't it? I remember going back to when I passed my test, you know, and sort of literally hours later you've got a car full of mates all telling you to drive fast.
You're invincible.
Yeah.
Well, this is one of the big things that we found out, that actually with young people, you have in the development of your brain, until you get to about 25, your frontal lobe, which is there to sort of risk assess, isn't fully developed. So young people really don't know how to know and balance the risks when they're driving, and this is why we're seeing so many problems.
Oh, it's terrifying. It really is. And Carol, you get that call that every single parent absolutely dreads. You get that phone call.
Exactly.
That must have been awful.
Sure.
No, really tough.
Yeah.
And were you ever worried though when when she was driving? Were you worried?
Sure,
about that
I think every parent worries the moment, and it's exactly as you say. You know, 1 minute they're doing it very quietly with their driving instructor, and that's all, and then suddenly they're taking their mates to parties, and of course, you know, it's a huge anxiety the moment they are on the road. And Sophie was no different. I mean, she seemed to be quite competent, but probably overly confident, I think, in a way.
So the Association of British Insurers have come up with a few changes they'd like to see put to law. What do you make of these changes?
I think it's very interesting. I think it's really right that some changes are made, because obviously something's going wrong. The statistics are speaking for themselves. Things do need to change, but in our we are working with Drive IQ, which is a free software, and it's a different kind of approach. We're saying that instead of doing post-test restrictions, we should be changing the way that young people are being educated, and we're advocating the use of this software that's really just groundbreaking. It can change the way that young people drive, reconsider things like attitudinal behaviours, you know, and things that young people need to know about when they go behind a wheel. Exactly.
You really don't. It's like what Aled was saying. All of a sudden you get there, you pass. And you can go on the motorway.
And then you're in the car with all your friends, music blaring. Those things are now being factored into learning, and that's really important. We need more of that, I think, and our research has shown that that works.
Some are saying that maybe you should spend a year learning to drive.
Absolutely. I mean, all these things do need to be challenged and changed and improved, but I think what we're saying a little bit, that the post-test restrictions almost, we could go that far as a last resort. Let's try and change education now, use things like Drive IQ and see if that helps people, you know, and then if that doesn't, that's when we go to these post-test restrictions.
Right, OK, because they're talking about curfews, aren't they? Talking about curfews on young people.
And it's quite hard to enforce. And ultimately you're punishing, therefore, all these young children, and not all children are irresponsible.
No, they're not all boy racers, they're not all speed freaks.
Exactly, they just need maybe better education so that we can avoid these problems. I know personally, if I'd had something like Drive IQ, I probably wouldn't be sat in a wheelchair. There's things that you can change about the way that young people think about driving, and that's what we're trying to do, and we want want to get into schools. And one of the things we're doing this week is we're really asking mums to take control. I know you've just said your daughter.
Yes, my daughter's 18 and driving, and a very good driver, a very responsible driver as well. But you just don't know about everybody else on the road.
Exactly. So we're asking mums to just say, if you want to take care of your children and you really want to support them in their learning, use something like Drive IQ. Get your schools to try and use this new software. It is free and it's life-changing, and this means that actually we can try and change just these statistics can come down if we can improve things. You know, people
life saved, life saved.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you both very much.
Thank you very much.
Love your passion.
Thank you.
I know it's brilliant. It's
Yes.
absolutely brilliant. It really is. It is 8:15 now. All week we're going to be meeting the